Hi there. In today's blog, I want to tell you about a film called Scream for Me Sarajevo. It's about a very unlikely concert held in Sarajevo in 1994 amidst what I believe was one of the longest sieges in modern history. And the film talks to Bruce Dickinson, the lead singer from Iron Maiden, and his solo band Skunkworks about the events leading up to and following a concert that they did in Sarajevo at the time. And it follows them as they go back to Sarajevo for the first time 20 years later. It's really an intense and emotional film, and it shows the power of music to transport people and how it provides escape, hope, and release from whatever we may be dealing with. It also details the incredible lengths that Bruce and his band went to give the people of Sarajevo a moment of relief from the hell that they were enduring. And I recently caught up with my friend Chris Dale, who was the bass player for Bruce during this trip. I wanted to share the conversation that we had about the film and about the whole trip with you guys. So here it is, and if you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend it. There will be a link to where you can find it at the end of this video. So, talking with my good friend Chris Dale today, and we're talking about Scream for Me Sarajevo, is a documentary about a concert held in Sarajevo in 1994 during the Bosnian War. Now, before we get into that, a little bit about Chris. Chris and I worked together on Mr. Big's tours in 2009 and 2011, right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
And he was Billy Sheehan's bass tech. But Chris is also a bass player himself, and over the years, you've been in a variety of bands like Tank and what are the other bands?
Oh, lots of silly things. Sack Trick, Atom Seed, yeah, etc., etc. Played for Eric Martin as well, amazingly.
Oh, nice. And of course, you played with Bruce Dickinson in his band Skunkworks, right?
That's right, I did, yeah.
And Bruce, for anybody who doesn't know, Bruce Dickinson is the lead singer for Iron Maiden. And what years did you play with Bruce in Skunkworks?
That was from 94 to 96.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I've done a few other things with him since over the years, but yeah, that was full time in the band.
Okay. And during that time, Bruce decided that he was going to do a concert in war-torn Sarajevo. How did that come about?
Yeah, he got asked to do it. Some of the UN forces in Sarajevo, some of the guys there decided to put a concert on, and they were looking around for artists to play it, and they rang up Kerrang magazine and asked the editor who he thought would be stupid enough to go and do a gig in Bosnia. And the editor quite rightly said Bruce Dickinson will do that. And yeah, they rang Bruce, and Bruce said, yeah, sure, it doesn't sound like a problem. Because, of course, we didn't understand what the problems were. So we said, yeah, it sounds great fun. I mean, no one's going to invite you to an active war zone, are they? That's silly. That was our assumption. We were wrong.
So, all right, well, tell us a little bit about what the experience was like. Just give us a little bit of an idea of, the logistics of getting there.
Yeah, it was all supposed to be nice and organised, and we were supposed to fly in on helicopters, in and out, do the show. But at the time we went over, there'd been some more serious fighting, and so we couldn't get the helicopters in and out. Actually, the helicopter we were going to use had been shot down the day before. So that was off. So the UN told us it's not worth going in, just go home. But instead, Bruce met a charity organisation, the Serious Road Trip, and they used to drive bright yellow trucks around a war zone, delivering supplies and entertaining children and being absolutely amazing. And they offered to drive us through to Sarajevo, or at least to a meet-up point just outside the city where we could meet up with the UN. So they did that, and we drove overnight in a ex-military truck. Through a war zone. We could hear gunfire in the background, and we stopped at military checkpoints, and it just got less and less fun as it went along, and a lot more scary. Because naively, like I said, we thought we're not going to go anywhere properly dangerous. But yeah, this was an active war zone. People were being killed around us.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you telling me the story back in 2009. It was just kind of like, wow, that's
Yeah.
And then you wrote a story about the whole experience for, was it Metal Talks website, or yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, in fact, I think that that night that me and you sat up, it was in Prague, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we ended up talking about the whole thing. It kind of brought it going round in my head again. And it was shortly after that that I started writing the articles on Metal Talk. I was already writing articles for this Metal Talk website. And it was mostly like, you know, little tour stories and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I thought, well, here's a tour story. So I wrote it, and as I started writing it, just more and more came out, and it ended up being a big, long piece, kind of a small book. And from there, obviously people all around the world start reading it, and then Bosnians read it. And that hadn't really clicked with me that, of course, Bosnians were going to read this. And I got loads of mails from lovely people saying they remember the gig and what a great time it was for them. And then a couple of Bosnian TV people, film people, came up with the idea of making this documentary. So we started working on that, and we did a couple of years of that, and I think it's great what's come out.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And
yeah,
so you had this harrowing experience, and then 20 years later you go back, and even before that, though, you're kind of reliving it, you know, filming the documentary, and then they take you back to Sarajevo 20 years after. That'd be difficult, you know. Did you find a lot of old anxiety or emotions coming up when you were doing the documentary and going back there?
Yeah, there was some sad moments, but it was also really reaffirming and lovely, because I remember that city being in darkness and no one being on the streets, and now it's a lovely, thriving, beautiful city, and highly recommended for holidays. And so that was lovely to see, and I could put those little, you know, ghosts to rest in my head, you know.
Right. So where did they have you stay when you were there?
We stayed in a UN base.
So you felt pretty safe?
Not really, no, because our little dormitory, there was sandbags halfway up the window, and the rest of the window was covered in black plastic sheeting, so that snipers couldn't see inside to take aim. And there was a bullet hole in the wall right next to my bed, where someone had written in Sharpie a little circle and a date on it for the last bullet that had come in that room. So even while that was the crazy thing, you know, even while you were asleep, you could be killed. There was no safety anywhere. I mean, we were on a UN base, but you know, they were quite happy to shoot at the UN as well as shoot at other soldiers, vehicles, women, children, anyone really. Yeah, that was the nature of it. It was just completely indiscriminate killing.
So how many days were you there altogether?
We were there. We were promised just to fly in, fly out, do the show. But of course, because of the helicopter situation, we couldn't fly out again straight after the gig. So we were forced to stay a couple of days. And I just remember thinking, I just want to get out of here. It's not. So I think we were there 2-3 days. The whole trip out and back was 4 or 5 days. It was a short trip, you know. I mean, people lived through 4 years of that siege.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me from seeing the movie was that, you know, when you live in a place like I was, you know, living in America, growing up at the time, you're just kind of so far removed from what's going on in other parts of the world, and we were just getting the little blips, you know, on the TV. You didn't really realize the what exactly was happening, like the intensity of it. And it's very difficult to comprehend what those people are going through when you're just living your happy little life and, you know, where it's peaceful. And, you know, here's these people who are just desperately trying to survive. You know, they can't go to school. Can they go to work? How are they going to go to the market? You walk out your door, you risk getting shot, you know? I mean,
they bombed the marketplace, killed quite a lot of people there.
Oh, God.
That's an easy target.
You know, it's just crazy. It's like you still have to somehow live somewhat of a normal life, as normal as it can be.
Yeah, and I think that's the wonderful thing about this film is shows, because he is mostly interviewing, here in the Bosnian side of things, they, they still played in rock bands.
Yeah.
That was the amazing thing. They weren't kind of broken by it and scared, hiding in their houses. I mean, obviously some were, and everyone spent a lot of time like that. But yeah, they did go out and have parties and.
I remember the one the Bosnian saying how it was kind of the best of times and the worst of times. Like you thought you could die tomorrow, so why not live it up? And it just brought this intensity to life that you never have again. And the kids who were that 1 hour a day when the power would come on and they would have band practice, just to kind of forget about things. And it also shows how music really brings people together and can kind of take you out of whatever hell you're living through and just give you a moment of relief and release, and
that's true, because I didn't realize at the time what an effect our gig had. I felt a bit bad about the whole thing. Like, we'd just kind of gone in there, we'd been relatively safe, we'd seen some suffering, and then we'd gone home to our lovely comfortable lives. And that was one of the great things about this film for me, was hearing from those Bosnians, and seeing that it had actually meant so much to them.
Right. And it was incredibly generous and selfless of all of you guys to do that, and everyone involved to persevere. Like, you guys got to split, and you were told, "Oh no, it can't happen," and Bruce made it happen. And,
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those funny things where at what point do you turn back?
Right.
I mean, perhaps I should have just said, when the gig was first mentioned, no, that's a crazy idea. I don't play gigs in war zones. But I didn't. I went along with it, thinking it would all be fine. And then when we got to Split and the UN said, no, it's not safe, don't go through, I thought we'd probably turn around. But Bruce was still up for going on. And so were some of the other guys. And you kind of follow the gang, don't you?
Right, right.
When you're on tour with a band, you hang out together, don't you? And you hang around, you do the little gang thing, and they're all going to this bar, so we all go to that bar. And it was kind of like that, And also, I think again in the military, there's it's all about comradeship and and not letting your mates down. So I wasn't going to be the first one to go, no, sorry, I'm going home. You lot go on if you want, but this is crazy.
Right.
And also, it didn't seem that we were told it was dangerous in Split, but Split was in peacetime at that point, so there was no immediate danger there. And then it's only when we're driving through the night and we start hearing gunfire. At first, they told us that the gunfire was like, oh, they have parties at night, the locals, and they fire guns in the air. Okay, I kind of get that. Yeah, if we're in some kind of Western movie, yeah. And then the further we went in, there was more and more gunfire and automatic fire, and you could hear from the sounds of shells that this isn't someone firing a pistol, this is artillery. People don't fire artillery at parties, not even in Texas. That's proper bad, isn't it? And so at that point, do you get out of the truck in the middle of the night and say, I'm sorry, I'm out of this now, this is getting way too dangerous? And then do you walk back to Split down a road that could potentially be mined? So it's probably at that point safer to stay and go through it all. And then once we got into Sarajevo and we realized about the snipers and we were told, there's certain places you don't walk because snipers can see you, snipers can shoot at you. And again, at that point, that now there's really no getting out of this. There's no other way home. It's not like on a normal tour where you can just go, you know what, guys, I've had enough of this. You're mad, and just go to the airport and take yourself home. There was an airport, but it was under siege as well. And there weren't passenger flights coming in and out every day.
Yeah, so I guess basically after you left Split, that was the point of no return. It was kind of like, all right, we've got to go through with it, or you're kind of on your own and probably not going to make it out on your own.
Quite. And from there, it just got more and more scary as it went along, because again, we didn't realize quite how dangerous Sarajevo was. And we didn't realize that they actually, follow people around with sniper sights. And take pot shots every now and then. So anytime you're in the street or you're visible, you could be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they give you, like protection to wear, like bulletproof vests and stuff like that?
No, this is one of the funny things. When we arrived at Split and we were going to go with the UN, they did have UN helmets and Kevlar jackets for us. Then we were told that we couldn't go through. We took a couple of photos with the helmets on and the Kevlar jackets, which appear in the film, and it was all just funny. We're just goofing around. Hey, look, we've got some costumes. Isn't this funny? But then when we weren't going with the UN, when we were going with the charity group, the UN took the helmets back. So although you see photos of us in body armor and helmets, we never actually wore those in Sarajevo.
Wow.
In Sarajevo, I had a woolly hat on because it was quite cold.
Yeah. That's a lot of protection other than from the cold.
No, that was the crazy thing. And all these UN soldiers, everyone else has got body armor. It's just us.
Oh my God. And your positions, you're expendable.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the documentary is incredible. And one of the things that we talked about was that, which wasn't in the film, was the fact that you actually had crew with you. You had your road crew.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to be talking to Jed Parle in a bit about his experience from the crew side of things.
Yeah.
And,
it's a shame they didn't get mentioned in the film. It ended up with the film where we had so many people wanting to come forward and tell their side of the story. We thought it would just get confusing with too many characters.
Right.
So I think we left it at like 15 different people being interviewed because you want to get a bit of a personal association with these people. But yeah, I'd be very curious to hear Jed's side of the story because, again, as we found while making the documentary, that human memory is fallible. And some people remembered some things and some people remembered other things and say, no, that didn't happen. And yeah, I've noticed a few things like that because we've had to examine it all. There's one bit in the film where one of the UN guys says, oh, we only had one light in the whole hall as the lighting rig. And then the next guy getting interviewed says, oh, I remember when the band came on and all the lights came on. Well, which is it? Were there all the lights or was there just one? And then in the film, we get to see some footage of the gig. And sure enough, there were more lights. I think there was about a dozen. Not as many as you'd normally have on a gig, but it certainly wasn't one light in pitch darkness. But that's human memory for you. And that I think that's one of the fun things about the film, actually, is going back and checking, did that actually happen? I mean, sometimes I think, did any of it happen? I mean, it's just way too crazy. I didn't do that.
Right. Yeah. What was would you have like one part of the trip that was probably the most memorable for you, or something that stuck out the most from the whole experience?
It's difficult to say. I mean, so much of it, and that's what I found when I started writing my little article for Metal Talk, because I thought I was just going to write a couple of pages, and just so many memories came back, and everything over there was so dramatic. Every conversation that you have with someone is completely unlike a conversation that you've ever had in your life before. Because of the experiences these people have. I can go to the shops now and I can have a conversation about the weather with the guy behind the shop counter, and it's going to be pretty forgettable probably. But over there, talking to some of the guys in the support bands, because we had local support bands, and they were fighting at the front line. They were frontline soldiers, and they said they spent like I think it was 3 days at the front line and then 2 days rehearsing, and then 3 days at the front line and 2 days rehearsing.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just puts totally different focus on everything,
Right.
So yeah, every moment over there was memorable. Even like going for dinner was memorable because we were fed by the UN, but the meal I remember was it was pasta and baked beans, and that's what the UN were eating. So Lord knows what the locals were eating.
Right.
So yeah, it all sticks in there. And it was great for me as well, writing the articles and then working on the film, to refresh all the memories and get it all back.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. I just want to thank you for doing this, and thank you for your time. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to scenes to see Scream for Me Sarajevo, and I'm going to include a link where you can find it. But yeah, it's great catching up with you, and great hearing all about it again. And good luck with everything. Hope to see you soon.
Lovely to chat anytime.